Hello and welcome to this Bonsai for Beginners video. In this series, we cover the fundamental skills and concepts that you need to know to be able to make bonsai of your own. Now, over the last few videos, we've been covering how to make a bonsai out of an existing tree. We've looked at how to select a tree, do an initial pruning, remove the branches that are too large for the pot, and then we wired those branches into position before filling in the gaps with smaller twigs. But when it comes to shaping bonsai, there's so much more to it than just sticking a wire around branches and bending them. In fact, there are two very distinct philosophies behind what makes a good bonsai. The first one we're going to look at today is Wabi Sabi, which is a philosophy that's already 800 years old, but it's still very relevant today. And the second philosophy that I want to share with you is called Shibui. It's a little bit less known, but it's something that I think about a lot when I make my bonsai, especially with this tree here. So let's have a look at these two philosophies and see how they apply to bonsai. Now, Wabi Sabi literally translates as rustic simplicity, and it's a term that's often used to describe the unique aesthetic qualities of bonsai. This is because Wabi Sabi embraces the imperfect, the impermanent, and all the simple things in life that we take for granted. It values authenticity, originality, and the natural beauty that can be found in imperfection. One way that we can see this in bonsai is by looking at the trunk. This tree has a beautiful rough and textured bark that looks great just the way it is. This is what we refer to as being unchipped or uncarved. In bonsai, we usually don't smooth out the bark or make any sort of carvings on the trunk. Instead, we let nature do its work and the tree's age show through the weathering of its bark. Another example of this would be moss growing on the bark of a bonsai. Moss is a natural part of the landscape in many places, and it's not something that we try to avoid in bonsai. In fact, we sometimes even encourage moss to grow on our bonsai, as it adds another layer of texture and interest to the tree. You can also see wabi-sabi in the branches of this tree. There is no perfect symmetry in nature, and we try to reflect that in our bonsai. If we were to draw a line down the center of this tree, you would see that the branches aren't exactly the same on either side. That's okay. In fact, it's actually what we're looking for. This kind of asymmetry gives the tree a more natural and interesting look, and it also helps to highlight the different shapes and textures of the branches. The pot that a bonsai is planted in can also be an important part of the wabi-sabi aesthetic. Often you will see pots that have a handmade or rustic look to them, with rough edges and uneven glaze. These pots are meant to complement the tree rather than compete with it, and they also add another layer of interest to the overall composition. But it's not just about embracing imperfection. Wabi-sabi is also about finding beauty in simplicity. This can be seen in the way that we prune and shape bonsai. Instead of trying to create perfectly symmetrical and uniform branches, we often leave some branches on the tree just as they are, even if they don't seem to fit perfectly into the overall shape. This is because we value the natural look of the tree and its branches. But perhaps most importantly of all, wabi-sabi is about appreciating the impermanence of nature. In bonsai, we often focus on the small details and the delicate balance of the tree. But we also need to remember that trees are living things that change and grow over time. As a bonsai grower, it is important to accept that no two trees are alike and that no two bonsai will ever be finished. It's a lifelong journey of discovery, and we should embrace the changes that happen along the way. So now let's talk about Shibui, which is an aesthetic concept that is a little bit less well known, but is something that I think about a lot when I'm making bonsai. You could probably guess that Shibui is a Japanese word, and it is actually made up of two characters. Shi, which means quiet, and which means beauty. When you put these together, you get quiet beauty, which doesn't really sound like much, but it's actually a pretty complex concept. Shibui is often described as an understated elegance or a quiet richness. It's the beauty that can be found in the subtle details and the simple things in life. So, how does this relate to bonsai? Well, it's actually a really big deal. You see, shibui is a concept that's often used in traditional Japanese arts like calligraphy, poetry, painting, architecture, ceramics, flower arrangement, and yes, bonsai. It's a philosophy that values simplicity, subtlety, and understated elegance. When it comes to bonsai, this means that instead of going for a showy or over-the-top look, we focus on the small details and the subtle complexities of the tree. So, for example, the tree I've been working on has a lot of fine twigs and small leaves. These create a sense of quiet richness in the bonsai because they add a lot of visual interest without being overly fussy or complicated. Another example of shibui in bonsai is the way that we prune and shape the branches. Rather than creating sharp angles or overly exaggerated curves, we aim for smooth, flowing lines that are more subtle and understated. This creates a sense of calm and tranquility in the bonsai, which is exactly what we're looking for with shibui. Now, this is where shibui gets a little bit tricky because it's not just about the shape of the bonsai. It's also about the color and the texture of the tree. When we choose a tree to make bonsai, we often look for ones with a range of colors and textures that complement each other. For example, the tree I've been working on has a smooth, light-colored bark that contrasts nicely with the dark green needles of the tree. This creates a sense of depth and complexity in the bonsai, even though it is a relatively simple tree. And finally, let's talk about the pot. The pot is an important part of any bonsai, and it should complement the tree rather than overpower it. With shibui, we often look for pots that have a simple, elegant design and a quiet beauty that speaks for itself. It's not about the size or the shape of the pot, but rather the subtle details and the understated elegance. So there you have it. Those are two very distinct philosophies when it comes to bonsai, and both of them lead to beautiful trees. Wabi Sabi and Shibui are two very different approaches to bonsai, but they both value simplicity, quiet beauty, and the natural world around us. Personally, I love both of these philosophies, and I try to incorporate them into my bonsai whenever I can. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this in future, please subscribe so that you don't miss out. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy bonsaiing.